Hello and welcome everybody to the webinar focus on good practice in financing social economy. We're sharing some good examples from Poland and Romania. The webinar is organized as a part of MFC activities under SIFTA project. Let me introduce our plan for today and our housing rules. Our webinar is going to last up to 2 hours. That will include presentations from our 2 expert speakers. That will also include few polls and space for questions and answers. The webinar is going to be recorded. We invite you to keep your cameras on, but please keep your microphones muted. My colleague, Joanna Zukowska, will be assisting you through the chat with any technical issues and make sure our session will go smooth. In case you would like to pose the question or comment, please do that through the chat or raise your hand at the dashboard, and I will invite you to unmute and speak. At the end of the webinar, when you leave the webinar, we would appreciate very much if you stay engaged for additional 1 to 2 minutes to fill out our survey to evaluate the webinar. It is really important for us to receive your feedback. The survey will pop up on your screen automatically when you leave the webinar. I have a pleasure to introduce our expert speakers for today. Katarzyna Duber-Stachurska, Vice President of the Management Board from TISE, and also Felicia Relensky, Chief Executive Officer of AFIN from Romania. TISE supports civil society and social economy in Poland through microfinance and social enterprise financing. AFIN is the first non-bank financial institution in Romania exclusively dedicated to the field of social economy, which has been established just recently, and we will hear what it takes to kick off the financing of the social enterprises. Both speakers will combine their experience, challenges, opportunities, successes, but also failures when it comes to financing social enterprises. Both of the speakers have really rich experience in banking and social economy sector. Namely, Katarzyna, she was working for more than 20 years in banking sector, and for the last 4 years, she's involved with TISE, working on social economy sector. While Felicia, she's also with more than 15 years of experience in field of financial services. She was engaged with banking sector, but also with non-bank financial institution before she joined in the capacity of Chief Executive Officer, AFIN. As I said, the first organization, first institution in Romania, which is dedicated and certified to serve social enterprises in Romania. Let me also promote our upcoming event for you and also for your colleagues. On 21st of June, we plan to organize another webinar under SIFTA program, which will be focused on sustainable agriculture. We will have also interesting speakers, James Mark de Souza Shields from International Fund for Agricultural Development, and also representatives of our member organization from Romania, Patria Credit, Raluca Adreika, and Iliuța Gitaru. And hopefully some of you or your colleagues will be able to join that webinar and to hear about the most urgent or hot topics and about the experience on sustainable and innovative solutions in sustainable agriculture. For those who don't know yet SIFTA, SIFTA project brings continuity to EASY Technical Assistance Program. The European Investment Bank, under the InvestEU Advisory Hub, reinforces the European microfinance and social enterprise finance sectors and provides support to microfinance and social enterprise finance providers under the window of social skills social investment and skills. The support is given through tailored trainings, workshops, webinars, peer-to-peer exchanges, and study visits on a wide range of topics related to financing micro and social enterprises. The projects also deliver rating, assessment, and evaluation services provided by Microfinance Rating. SIFTA is eligible for EU 27 countries. The time frame of these initiatives is initially until December 2024, and the beneficiaries are microfinance providers, such as banks, non-bank microfinance institutions, but also social enterprise finance providers, such as investment funds, impact investors, incubators, accelerators, fintechs, etc. The technical assistance team responsible for the implementation, for the market development activities and capacity building services consists of consortium, which is led by Frankfurt School of Finance and Management, and its partners, Microfinance Center and the European Microfinance Network. And for rating and assessment and evaluation services, as I already mentioned, there is Microfinance Rating, which could help you with that. For those who would be interested to explore more about the cooperation and possible services to be delivered on the SIFTA program, you will be able to go through this link, which is in the presentation, and you will receive this presentation after the webinar to see more about the program, but also to have this email address, which is mentioned here, where you can write all your specific demands, requests, questions. So before we enter into the practical presentations from our two distinguished speakers, I would like just to launch a very brief poll. I hope you can see it now on your screens. What is your knowledge of social economy and financing social enterprises? We would appreciate if you will answer this poll so we have an idea about the knowledge and experience of the people participating on this webinar. Yeah, I encourage you to reply. It's rather simple poll. I see only, on my screen at least, I see only 2 people, but I don't know what you see on your screen. So I give you, 10, 15 seconds more to reply to this poll. All right, so I don't know if all of you can perhaps somebody mention whether you are able to reply to the poll. Okay, if you do not mind, I will just relaunch it and then let's try, because I see some people were not able to reply. So it's quite interesting and important for us to understand. Let me see if I can relaunch it. Yeah, let me do that. Fantastic. Now I see the numbers are growing. Very good. Thank you for your participation. Five more seconds, and then I'm going to end it. So we have now a major part of the people replying, I have some knowledge about it, and I have heard about it, but I would like to learn more. So, I mean, it seems like nobody here is an expert or feels like an expert, which I think, yeah, it's a good place to be, because we have two experts here, which really will share with you their experience and their knowledge from this important initiative and sector. Just for you, also showing the results. And I think now I can ask Katarzyna to be the first to take the floor and present her experience from Poland. Thank you, Katarzyna.
Hello, everybody. Hello. I will try to share my presentation with you, if I only manage. I would like to welcome everybody. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for MFC to have invited me, and let me present you our experience as TISE in social economy and social economy financing in Poland. My name is Katarzyna. I am with TISE for 3.5 years now, almost 4, but TISE is active in financing social economy sector in Poland for 30 years now. So really, it is the very experienced organization. Before we start to talk about social economy financing as such, we have to put it in some context. This context is important for any financing you make, but in case of social economy, it's even more important, because social economy financing is very much people-driven and relationship-driven. When you make microfinance loans, you try to proceed by some schemes and replicate them as much as possible to accelerate the process and make it cheaper and more efficient. If you finance small and medium enterprises, you rely on your financial analysis you make based on the financial data you are provided with. In case of social economy, you do both, but without people on your side and people on the side of your clients, without putting a lot of attention and time to structure the deal, to understand the organization you have in front of you, you will not manage to do so. So this context is extremely important. The second reason why this context is so important is because social economy sector, if you want it or not, is today dependent on public support still, and it would be like this in coming years. And if we are talking about any public support, we must understand the legal framework and the context we are about. I'm not going to bother you a lot with the history of social economy in Poland. It's not the objective, but just really a very brief picture. So social economy in Poland is not something new. It's something that has already almost 200 years of history, because first cooperatives appeared in the first half of 19th century. So really long history behind us. Now the sector is quite diversified, quite big, and quite complex. We have 9 possible legal forms. Foundations, you know and you understand. Associations also. Social cooperatives maybe also. But we have also limited liabilities non-profit companies. We have also some very specific bodies like employment promotion centers or something like that. So really 9 possible legal forms for our social economy entities in Poland. The sector is quite large. We have about 70,000 associations and foundations. We have a couple of thousand of social cooperatives, so really quite a big sector. Still, the organizations are weak, small, on average 25 members, 25 members excluding volunteers, but really members working in the organization. Only 6%, according to some studies, only 6% of our social economy entities can exceed 200,000 euro threshold of revenues. Then the large majority of our entities are much smaller, weak, vulnerable, without long-term revenues sources, living from one project to another. So without fixed assets, I'm thinking about real estate mainly, with low capitals. So this sector is very vulnerable, very weak, and as such not extremely attractive for financial institutions, especially those working for commercial purposes. We have in Poland something that we call Social Economy Act, something I don't know whether it is in all other countries also, but this Social Economy Act is on one hand a positive thing, showing that the state is recognizing the sector and its role, but on the other hand, this gives us very rigid regulations and limitations that we have to live with, and this puts some limits and constraints on our activity. The social economy entities were recognized at the very beginning of the transformation of Poland from communist to market economy. Their role was clearly recognized to help to develop civil society, to help to limit social tensions, conflicts, which were absolutely inevitable during this transformation process, and to facilitate job creation, to prevent social exclusion. So their role was really recognized from the very beginning. And from the very beginning, and for 30 years now, this sector is developing. This sector is important in the Polish economy as such, for instance, creating 150,000 permanent jobs. We are not talking about volunteers, about members, but just permanent jobs. So the sector is growing, is developing, but recently we can notice some negative trends, a little bit worrying for us. We can see some stagnation of revenues. We can see some stagnation in this growth. Still, there are more foundations, associations, social cooperatives which are created than liquidated, but this growth is at lower rate. Revenues are stagnating. What is even more worrying is that more and more revenues are coming from public sector, less from private. It is the trend that in my opinion is really worrying. And the role of commercial activities, I mean economic activities in our social economy entities is decreasing, which is also not a good sign. What I call a kind of generation gap. We have such phenomena that we can see in many organizations, that they are managed by the same people for 15, 20 years, the same leaders, the same members, the same managers. In some organizations, some changes, generation changes would be necessary, and it is also a kind of threat for the sector. This heritage of the past, this big sector diversified, is somehow positive, but also this heritage is a little bit ambiguous, because during the communist time, a lot of cooperatives were active in housing, agriculture, manufacturing even, but they were cooperatives only by name, not by real way of working. So these associations with cooperatives are not necessarily always positive. But we believe that social economy is important. It is the part of civil society. Without developed civil society, the country will not develop as we would like to. So this sector is important. As I said, weak in terms of financial profile, with quite a rigid legal framework, and with too high dependence on public sector. So there are positive, there are negative elements and aspects. Now, as far as available financial instruments for the sector in Poland, well, there are not a lot of them. I mean, we have public aid and instruments with some public aid behind, public support behind. Financial sector, commercial financial sector is not interested in social economy entities. They do not consider this sector extremely attractive. And on the other hand, they consider it quite risky from reputation point of view, financial point of view, and quite complex to understand and to follow properly. So when we are talking about financing social economy, we should not concentrate only on financial aspects. Banks would have very reserved approach towards social economy entities, not only because financial, but also because of reputation, money laundering, legal complexity, and so on. It is also something to be remembered, and we should not, in my opinion, and I am a former banker, we should not expect banks to finance social economy easily in coming years. It would not happen soon and on big scale. Now
Katarzyna, before you go to this and you will talk more about your activities, huh? I mean, let me maybe also ask the audience for the second poll, which I'm just publishing to the screen. I hope you can see it now. Katarzyna, do you see the poll?
Yep.
Okay, so I mean, the poll is about which of the following do you believe is a common means about social enterprise financing? Yeah, and please let's see, you know, what is your understanding of the social enterprise financing? All right, so I don't know why the Zoom is making a trouble. So maybe the second relaunch is going to work as well again. So let me.
Maybe.
Let me relaunch.
You're trying. Okay.
So I'm relaunching it now. So you should hopefully be able now. I don't know why it's allowing only 2 people to reply in the first round. Do you see it now? Can you reply now? I don't see. No. All right. So let me
try to share the results, and I can try to comment anyway and give
No,
my...
I mean, now the results are probably 0. Before they were 2,
Yeah.
but let me just stop and,
And
relaunch maybe
I will
once again the last
yeah.
attempt, and then if it doesn't work, then we will just...
Okay. So let me maybe comment.
Last attempt.
Let me maybe comment. Social enterprises can only be funded through donations. No, it's absolutely not true, and TISE is the proof that it could be financed. Oh, it's coming.
Yeah,
that the social economy entities could be financed through normal financing. I mean, loans could be. We are also even trying to finance social economy through equity injections, but it's even more complicated. But loans are possible, so not only through donations. Social enterprises cannot make a profit. No, social enterprises could make a profit. The idea behind being a social enterprise is that these profits must be reinvested or used for social goals, social objectives. But profits are more than welcome. Simply their allocation, their consumption, then sharing these profits is limited, and as I say, it must be either reinvested or used for social goals. Social enterprises cannot access traditional financing. Unfortunately, banks are not really interesting. So yes, it is a kind of unfortunately true declaration. But as I can see from the results, it's confusing that you think that social enterprises cannot make a profit. It's really something that I would like to convince you it's not the case, because if we cannot prove that economic activity of social enterprise is profitable, then it would be really difficult to get any other financing than donation. And we would like to go to the stage of social economy development when not only donations are considered as the source of financing, but that we get other opportunities. But for make these other opportunities available, we must show that social enterprises can make profits. It's a little bit this philosophy and way of thinking behind.
Okay, thank you, Katarzyna. And let me just kindly ask everybody who participates to mute their microphones, because we hear some noise in the background from somebody, so it would be difficult to hear from Katarzyna. So thank you very much for your understanding.
Yeah. So TISE is a company created in 1991. So really at the very beginning of transformation of Poland to market economy. And it was from the very beginning very clear that the mission of the company is to support the civil society in Poland and social economy in Poland. So it is our mission from the very beginning, from the very start. Now, the mission itself has not changed. What is evaluating is the tools we used to achieve this goal. So we have started as an investment fund, a kind of investment fund. This kind of investment fund was part of bigger group, a French cooperative bank, Crédit Coopératif, who is our only unique shareholder, created in Poland a banking group with a bank, with an investment fund, TISE at the very beginning, and other entities. Now this group does not exist anymore. The bank BISE does not exist anymore. It was sold out, but TISE is still there, and we have changed a little bit our stages and our activity from investment fund to financial intermediary. Simply at the moment when the European funds have begun available for Polish companies and organizations, we decided to develop this activity to become a financial intermediary, helping to distribute these European funds. And our activity of investment fund has become less important. Now we are retrying to do it a little bit, but this is something extremely complicated, and we will not enter maybe into details here. There is no place for that. We can say, and it's not without any false modesty, that TISE is really a leader as far as financing of social economy sector in Poland. It's not something to be really very, very proud about, in the sense that we would prefer to have other players on our side, and they are not very, very, very present, and there are really few of them financing social economy. So we are the leader because simply the sector and the financial institutions are not so eager to do so. We have a very special status because we are a, let's say, ordinary commercial financial institution. This has some advantages. We are the part of French banking group, commercial French cooperative banks group. But the constraints are also there, because being an ordinary financial institution, we face the problem of our profitability, and we are supposed to earn money and report that we do it, which is not the easiest cake. But okay, we are trying to live with that. I try to go. Okay, so maybe just a couple of numbers to show you the scope of our activity. We have granted over 630 loans for over 45 million euros since 2014, which makes the average amount of such loan over 70,000 euro, but it's not really the case recently. Recently, this amount is decreasing. First, loans were on average bigger. Now, loans are on average at lower amounts. It's because our public partners prefer lower amounts of loans, smaller loans, and we follow their policy and their concept for the sector. Our current exposure on social economy is about 15 million euro. It's our really current exposure in loans. When I'm talking about the loans amounts and exposure, I think about all funding all available. In 80%, it's coming from public sector. We have here the Polish state. We have the European funds coming through the Polish state. We have local Polish authorities, regional cities and regions, so local authorities in Poland. And we have also European funds directly. We have different instruments with European Investment Fund. We have been distributing easy loans. We are now in InvestEU scheme, and we have InvestEU line. So we are working also directly with European Investment Fund and distributing European funds directly through this way. 20% of this 15 million euro of our outstanding right now, these are our own money, so private money coming from TISE and from its shareholders, so French cooperative bank, Crédit Coopératif. Now, who are our beneficiaries? Associations, foundations, social cooperatives, non-profit limited liabilities companies, religious legal persons also happens, and other specific bodies under the Polish Social Economy Act who could be considered as social economy entities. When we regard at main sectors of activity that we are financing, education will be the first sector, I would say. Then there will be hotels, restaurants, catering, tourism, this kind of activities, services, sport, culture. We have a few manufacturing entities. It is also a part of our financing, but I would not say that this part is really important. I would say that services are much more represented than manufacturing. We concentrate our activity on Poland, and we grant our loans now only in Poland. But in the past, we have tried to go a little bit outside Poland. It was not the best experience. It's too complicated. As I said before, it is so people-driven, it is so relationship-driven that you cannot do it from Poland in Slovakia, Hungary, Slovenia, or Croatia. It's too complicated. But we have a couple of outstanding loans still in these countries. When I would like to make a picture of what is the most decisive important factors that you have to take into consideration when financing social economy, you must have good legal framework, public policies in place, so objectives of public institutions you are working with, of your public partners, instruments they make available for you, and regulations they are governed with. And you must keep really good relationship with this public bodies, with your public partners. That's what we do. We are in permanent dialogue with them. They consult a lot of things with us. Unfortunately, I cannot say that we can impact easily their final decisions, but at least we try to talk, and they try to listen. But of course, both sides have constraints, and it's not always necessarily the easiest part of the job, but you have to talk to them all the time. You have to talk to them that their instruments, their regulations, their approach is wrong. You must show them when they are making mistakes, why, and what would you like to get from them. They are listening, even if they are not extremely responsive, because with public bodies, it's unfortunately like that. But to be successful in financing social economy, you have to also be connected and be within this ecosystem, within this network of organizations, people, entities, bodies, partners, platforms. So we are working very closely with such public institutions in Poland called social economy support centers. We are working closely with the biggest NGOs, with other providers of financing. We are not competing. We are trying to cooperate to see what we can do, how we can combine our forces to go further. And local authorities and the biggest client and the biggest players of the sector. They must know you. You must know them. You must understand them. That's why I'm saying that it's so important to know the people, and it is so people-driven. You must have the team on your side. The team recognized, respected within the sector. People must trust you, must trust that you understand what you are doing. We can see right now, for instance, in Poland, several financial intermediaries specialized in distributing European funds to small and medium enterprises. They're really very, very efficient and good in it. They're providing a huge number of loans to SMEs. And they're trying to do the same for social economy sector, to social economy entities. And they find it extremely difficult. Their first mistake that I'm trying to make them realize that they make this mistake is that simply they use the same people, the same team to distribute loans to SMEs and to social economy. It does not work. You must invest more time, you must have specific competencies, you must get to know the sector before you can do it with success. Otherwise, you risk to face problems in granting and even bigger problems in being repaid. What we do? We prefer to do investment loans, maybe surprising, but it's the case. Why? Because in social economy entities, it's easier sometimes, and I would say even quite often, to isolate a kind of investment project. You can define it in the way you think it's appropriate, and to assign costs, revenues, and risk to it, to get the collateral related to it, and then you have a project that you can finance, that you can rely on. We are forced by our public partners to take collaterals. It could be surprising for some of you, but it's the case. For small loans, microfinance type loans, we do not. We take only suretyships of our clients. But for bigger loans, yes, we try to get collaterals. We try to get mortgages, pledges, this kind of collaterals. We do working capital financing, of course we do, but it's quite complicated in case of social economy entities because they are involved in very different activities, not only at sometimes and quite often not mainly economic ones, financial ones connected with revenues. They have some grants, they have some projects. And it's difficult to assess to what extent their activity is profitable. It's difficult to sometimes to assign costs to revenues. So working capital is a little bit tricky. You must really understand well the organization and its profile to do it. And of course we do it, but it's time consuming and quite risky. We are trying now to avoid bridge financing. It could seem to you the easiest thing to do. The organization is coming to see you saying, I will get a lot of money, I will get this or that project, and it will be great, and I would get a lot of financing. So please, I need short-term financing from you, kind of bridge financing, because I have to prepare. I have to make some expenses to prepare to this project. We have done it in the past with quite bad results. First, because our organizations are very often too optimistic, then of course, but also because if the sources of financing you are going to make bridge to is public, it's not always obvious and evident that you can use this public source of money to repay you. So some special structuring is somehow sometimes necessary because public money is very often linked with such constraints that you cannot refinance past expenses. and you cannot use these funds to repay any financial obligations. So if you are going to give any bridge financing to any social economy entity, ask twice and think twice how and if they are able to use this future public money to repay you. What we do, and we are not so afraid of, is to finance startups. But I would say two kinds of startups. First type of startups that we finance are very small new initiatives. It's a kind of microfinance loans. We have 3 ladies in a small city trying to open a cafe, and we can give them a small loan to start their activity. It's a kind of startups we are financing. We have even sometimes special instruments for that with public support behind. We are also financing new activities, new entities of our clients that we know already. So if a big organization is coming to see us and saying, oh, we are very successful in restaurant, and now we are going to go a step further and we would like to open a small hotel, we say, okay, you make a separate legal entity for that to assign revenues, risks, and costs, and we can consider it as a startup, but we will give you a loan because we know you, we know your profile, your business model, and we believe you will be able to manage your activity is well embedded in your current profile and it could work. Why not? Let's go. So startups, we are not afraid by definition, whereas, for instance, banks are afraid and are absolutely reluctant to finance startups as such because they are startups. Let's go further. As I have already mentioned twice, and I would repeat it once more, qualitative analysis is much more important if you want to finance social economy sector than in case of SMEs, because human factor is the most significant aspect to consider. Your clients will bring you some financial projections because you ask them to do that. But these projections are usually of limited value. They will tell you more about the competencies of people who prepared them than about the real financial perspectives of your client, because the majority of social economy entities, they do not have long-term sources of revenues. There will be another project or not. There will be another contract from local authority or not. So their long-term sources of financing are usually not very sure, and you can ask them how they reasonably see their future and their chances, but the value of these financial projections is quite limited. What we finance machines, equipment, for instance, equipment for shops, cafe, restaurants, small hotels, this kind of schools, kindergartens, and this kind of objects. Refurbishment, a lot of refurbishment of real estate. Unfortunately, usually this is real estate in location. Usually it's not real estate that they own, but it's like that. We have to live with that. We finance refurbishment of real estate, for instance, rent from the local authorities, for instance. So we are doing that. Sometimes we can finance purchase. In some instruments it is limited. In some instruments we can do that, and sometimes we do. And raw materials, of course, for manufacturing entities or for other entities who could need such financing. And these collaterals that I was talking to you about that we have to take, it's not that we really believe in their real financial value. It is also to satisfy the needs of our public partners who require it, but it is also a kind of moral hazard prevention. So we believe that if you make a pledge on your basic and the most important tool that you are using in your activity, you will be very careful not to lose it and not to complicate your life as an organization. That's why we take very original collateral sometimes. We have a castle, we have a herd of sheep, riding horses, burger machines, and this kind of very sometimes surprising stuff. Equipment for medieval knights, we have been even trying to use a little bit to see how it's working, so it was really funny. But yes, we have this kind of collaterals, and we are trying sometimes to recover money selling it. It's sometimes challenging, but yes, it is something we have to do.
Katarzyna,
Yeah.
maybe before you go on, perhaps you could also share, some examples of failures or, less appropriate practice, which you learn, by doing these loans in the past, which might be also helpful to understand that this type of lending is a bit different from typical microfinance lending. Yeah.
Our biggest failure is this famous castle, famous because everybody in our company knows the history of this castle. It's a small castle. It's of course not a very, very, very big one, but still a castle from 16th century or something. So a foundation bought this castle from local authority, their local authority, in order to make a kind of conference center, training center. And the idea was to give them money for refurbishment. And we have a mortgage on it. Now, this idea was too ambitious, definitely too ambitious. They failed. They were not able to finish the refurbishment works. Castle is in 60-70% refurbished, but not in 100%. It does not work. And the foundation declared the bankruptcy. Now we are trying to recover. We are trying to sell this castle. There are several potential buyers. It could be local authority buying back. It could be also a private entrepreneur interested to make a small hotel and luxury restaurant in it. We will see. If we succeed to sell, we will recover 90% of what we have of exposure. We have almost 700,000 euro of exposure, so really a lot in free loans that we have given to this foundation. So the amount is huge for us, 700,000 euro. If we recover, we would recover probably 90%, but the time we spent on this case is really, really huge, and it is the biggest failure, absolutely. But we have also, of course, very, very good examples. We are the most proud for the organizations that were very, very small when we have granted them the first loan, and then they are growing and taking new loans, repaying successive loans, and we can see that they are growing with us, and we are really very, very happy and very, very proud to see that. We have, for instance, 3 ladies in a small city, unemployed, who decided that they will create jobs for themselves. They have started with a small catering activity, then cafe, then restaurant, then a small tourist place, a kind of small hotel. Now through catering activity, they have started to be interested in providing services of care for senior people. They have realized that they are delivering food to people who need help and care because they are elderly people and in difficulties. So they are now developing seniorial care services, and it's incredible. But they employ 50 persons on permanent positions. So absolutely incredible success of them.
Okay, and we have one more question also from the audience before I go to that. I mean, about this, let's say, problem loan. Would there be anything you would do differently at the beginning when you were, considering their application? What was actually the factor which made them to fail?
No, you cannot always be able to provide and you cannot always predict all circumstances. So it's simply like that. You cannot do anything about it. It would simply happen. It would simply happen, and that's all.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I have some technical issues here. My mistake, probably. Oh my goodness! I'm not able to return to the screen. Oh.
Don't worry. I mean, we have the presentation with us.
Okay. It's okay. It's okay now. It's okay now.
Fine.
Okay.
So the question from the audience, from Rahat Tajimuratov, do you prefer providing short-term or long-term financing?
Of course, short-term, because long-term risk is always long-term risk and bigger risk than short-term. So of course, short-term. But we have to always look at sources of repayment. And sometimes it's simply you have no other choice but to give them long-term financing, but longer is always riskier. What we can say from our experience: be careful when granting grace periods. It has happened to us many times that we have granted long grace periods to our clients with long-term financing to make them feel more comfortable, to generate revenues, to finish their investment project. Fine, but in 3-4 months afterwards, they have forgotten about us in some sense. Oh my God, yes, you are right. We should pay some interest. We should pay some installment loans. Oh my God, we have forgotten. We try to keep contact with our clients, even push them to pay small interest every month, to make a call to them every quarter. Hello, we are here. You remember you are our client. You remember you have a loan with us. Because it happened really to us that people changed within the organization, and they really were lost when someday we have called them saying, guys, you have something to pay. An installment is already matured, and you didn't pay your loan. And it happened to us that they were surprised. So long term is risky because it's more risky, but long term is also the question of keeping the relationship with people. And in social economy entities, it could change rapidly. So you must put another effort to keep this relationship if you want to finance them on a long-term basis.
Okay, thank you. And maybe one more. As of now, could you share an example of equity or quasi-equity case, especially if the exit has already happened there?
Yes, we have such fund. It's called social venture capital. We have such fund. It is with public support. We put 12% of our money, and 88% is coming from the ministry. For our clients, it is like a loan. They do not consider it as equity. It's too sophisticated, too complicated. For them, it's another form of financing, so another form of loan. It's how they can see it from their perspective. First thing. Second thing, you are entering commercial code regulations, complicated ones with general assembly of shareholders and this kind of things that you have to do, which is time consuming and producing a lot of papers. It's the second thing. And third thing, exit. In fact, exit is that they repay you. I mean, the shareholders or the founders of the company simply repay you. I do not believe, and I cannot see any possibility to go to the market and to sell it to any market whatsoever, even to other impact funds, because it's extremely, it is hardly possible, and it didn't happen to us yet. No, for us, it's too sophisticated to provide financing which could be otherwise provided in more simpler way through long-term loan. I would recommend really to give long-term loans rather than investing in equity, because it's a lot of additional problems with quite limited value added. It is our experience, at least for the time being.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Artur Muntenau.
Yeah, so I will try to conclude, because I, of course,
sure.
Too long. Well, just to conclude for TISE for Poland, but I think it could be also relevant for you and for your respective countries and your respective companies. The sector is maturing, but it's still not matured. We have to think about our position towards comparing us to Western Europe, for instance, France, that I know a little bit more, Germany, Austria. We are still far from there. Our GDP absolute level and growth rate is as it is, and we still have a long way in front of us. What is important, and what, in my opinion, is something that we have to focus on, is to get more private sector's involvement. Our social economy sector in Poland, and I would be happy to hear how it is in your countries, it's too dependent on public sector in terms of contracts, revenues, in terms of support. So private sector must be much more involved. It's coming. We know that this private sector is here in Poland for only 30 years, so it's coming, but for sure it would take also some time. And this public support and civil society, it's somehow interconnected. The better civil society we will have, the more socially responsible private business and citizens we will have. Social economy sector would develop better or not. But I think this public versus private tension that we have in Poland in social economy sector is something we really have to focus on. I mean, I have the impression sometimes that we have two social economy sectors in Poland. This one using public funds, and this one using only private funds. And they sometimes really have problems to talk to each other, and they hardly cooperate together. It's something we have to change if we want the sector to develop, and if we want to provide more financial instrument for this sector. We must push social economy towards more private more economically viable instruments and way of thinking. And maybe the last small thought, I have also sometimes the impression that social economy, in Poland at least, is just social, not necessarily green, not necessarily focused on digital, for instance, revolution, not necessarily involved in green transformation and climate challenges. And it is also a big chance for social economy sector, because there will be big flow of funds coming from European sources to support green transformation, to support digital transformation. And our social economy entities could really benefit from these funds if only they combine this thinking with their approach, and here there's the role of education still to play, to make people go a step further. A kind of generation gap, a kind of change of generation in Polish social economic sector is also something that should happen. So I'm optimistic about the future. I'm not highly optimistic, but I think that we have identified our barriers, constraints, challenges. We know where we are, and with this big support we get from Europe, from the European Union, I think we will progress. So I will try to finish on that. And of course, I am happy to take any your further questions, comments. Thank you a lot.
Thank you, Katarzyna. It was a really interesting presentation with a lot of information about situation and market in Poland, but also about the type of projects you support. I think you highlighted the importance of the cooperation between public and private stakeholders in the country, and also efforts for more advocacy, how these two sectors could cooperate, in future. And what I'm taking it also from your presentation, that assessment of applications is of major or crucial importance to really have good understanding what the project is about, and it needs a specific expertise, which is not equal expertise as if you consider typical SME projects or micro
and
projects.
As it is so qualitative, you will have necessarily failures, you will have higher sinistrality rate than in case of SMEs, but it is, I would say, a kind of nature specificity of this sector you have to live with.
Right. Okay, so thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Once again, and of course, if people have more questions to Katarzyna, you are very welcome, either, to put it through the chat, or, just ask, raise your hand and ask to unmute yourself, and you can pose the question. But for now, I would suggest to continue and give a floor to Felicia Rylensky to share her presentation with information from Romania. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here and participating in this seminar. And thank you, Pavel, for inviting me to this seminar to share some of some information and some of my expertise in the social field in Romania. I will try to share with you my presentation, if I am allowed to. Okay. Can you see it on your screen?
Yes. Just please put it in a presentation mode. Yes, super.
All right. So probably in my presentation, you will hear some of the information which will repeat, because social economy in Romania is similar to, in many points, with the social economy in Poland. I'm sorry if those things will be common and hopefully will not bore you, but I structured my presentation in two main parts. One, general facts or information or figures about social economy and social finance market in Romania, and also some information about the company I work in, which is AFIN, Alternative Financing Non-Bank Financial Institutions here in Romania. I'll try first just to show a brief market size of the Romanian social economy versus this sector in Europe. I'm not going to go through all the figures, but you can see there are big differences. It's a smaller size in terms of number, of percentage of the GDP, and especially of the paid jobs that are existent in the social sector in Romania. But hearing my colleague discussing about Poland, it seems that the number of the social entities in Romania is higher. However, I think in terms of volumes of income, of activity, it's a much smaller market and less mature than in Poland. However, it's a growing sector. It's dominated by NGOs. 95% of the sector is represented by NGOs. It's a very young sector, dynamic, but this comes with bad and goods, of course, because they establish a lot of NGOs. However, based on some studies, only 48% of them are active entities, out of which 24% have no income, and around 15% generate income of 40,000 euro, more than 40,000 euro per year. The other part, the 5%, is divided between cooperatives, credit unions, and social enterprises. The cooperatives, it's a rather old sector. Most of the cooperatives are registered before 1989. As in Poland, they were going back 200 years. In Romania also, the first cooperative, I think, was established around 100 years ago. More dynamic is the subsector of agricultural cooperatives, but the others, the crafts and consumers, are pretty stagnating and even decreasing in number, and especially in number of members and employees. The credit co-ops are only 34 of them, so it's a small number compared with the total number of cooperatives, which are around 3,700. The credit unions also, it's a small sector, around 2,500 of them. It's a stable one. They are represented by credit unions of employees or credit unions of retired people. We've seen some mergers in the last years. They tried to increase their assets and organizational capacity. And also another type of entity in the social economy in Romania are social enterprises. This is a new type of entity which was included by the legislation under the umbrella of social economy rather recently.
Would non-banking financial institutions fall in any of these categories?
Banking financial institutions, yes.
Non-banking financial institutions, yeah.
Non-banking financial institutions are the credit unions. They are legislated as non-bank financial institutions. And credit cooperatives also are credit institutions. So both of them are regulated by the National Bank of Romania.
Good. Thank you.
Because I mentioned the new concept introduced by the legislation here in Romania, I will give you a short few information about the legal framework. There is a social economy law, which was passed in 2015, which defines the social economy, similar to the rest of Europe, with the economics that prioritize economic activities and social economies that prioritize people over profit, reinvest their profit for development, and have a democratic and inclusive governance. There are some legal forms that are recognized by the law. As I mentioned previously, the cooperatives, credit unions, associations, foundations, and even commercial companies, but even only if they are certified as social enterprises. In fact, the social economy existed in Romania has existed for a long period before this legislation was passed. The legislation only give a recognition of this sector existing in Romania and define some more concepts as this one, certified social enterprises, and also created a general framework, but did not provide enough practical support for the social economy sector or for its development. It has a limited perspective and it focuses especially on this new concept, the certified enterprise, and on work integration social enterprises. In practice, in the left side, you can see how the social economy looks like in Romania. So it's there are three types of entities, but from the point of view of our authorities and the legislation, in fact, they put very much accent only on these two types, the work integration social enterprises and those certified. Just to give you a sense of what means certified social enterprise and certified work integration social enterprise. According to the law, they need to meet some certification criteria, which need to be also stipulated in their articles of association. So not only met, but only included in their articles of association. So their activity has to have a social purpose or to be in the interest of a community. 90% of their profits should be reinvested for social purposes. In case of liquidation, the remaining assets should be transferred to other social enterprises. And it should be a maximum difference between the salaries of the employees, maximum 1:8. This is the ratio. In addition, the certified work integration social enterprises need to have at least 30% of their employees belonging at all time to the vulnerable groups. These certifications are issued by the county agencies for employment. They are valid for 5 or respectively for the other 3 years. They can be extended if all conditions are met. What happened after 2015 when this law was issued and the new concept was introduced? As you can see on the graph on the right side, 3,000 certified social enterprises were registered, only around 2.5% of the total number of social entities. Their number is every month updated in the National Registry of Social Enterprises. And I looked at the end of April, and out of these 2,900 almost, only 2,600 were still valid certificates. The rest were suspended or, I don't know, not renewed, expired somehow. You might wonder what happened between 2020 and 2022. It happened a national boom of European funds. So a lot of programs were created, and the European funds were distributed in order to start up certified social enterprises. That's why a big number of them were created to access these European funds. During that period, little funds were aimed at sustaining the already existing social enterprises. And not surprisingly, previously established social entities like NGOs or cooperatives or credit unions did not opt to apply for certification because, in fact, the law does not bring any tangible benefits in this respect, but adds to the administrative burden. And as noticed, 300 certificates already are not renewed. So many certified enterprises renounce their certification at the end of the European Fund project implementation because, again, they do not see any further benefit. In practice, in Romania, a social entity can operate and observe the values of the social economy without choosing to be certified. This is a big problem for now. We are, all specialists in the economy sector are struggling to change this legislation, to adapt it, to see how we can move this accent from these certified social enterprises to the whole sector in order to benefit all the entities. So some small conclusions on the social economy itself, sector. It's puzzled, it's scarcely visible despite its growth. We've seen a lot of growing interest in the public authorities, but still it seems that they have a limited understanding of the concept and focus mainly on work integration of marginalized groups. They tried to improve the regulatory framework twice in the last 2 years, but still not succeeded very much, just minor adjustments. There is no social or civil dialogue mechanism here in Romania among the social economy participants. And one of the biggest problems, of course, it's the lack of access to finance, especially after the startup phase. So after they were established by European funds, after 2-3 years, they don't have money to continue their activity and have very big difficulties to access funding from other sources. What are these sources right now for them? Public funds, as we said, for social economy, mainly coming from European funds and mainly directed to startups. There are some fiscal instruments for non-profit organizations. The companies or individuals can redirect 20% of their profit or income tax, this for companies, and 2% or 3.5% the individuals. But it's still a limited way of funding it. From a recent study shows that around I think 8% of the corporations they redirect their part of income tax to this type of organizations, and around 35% of individuals. So there is still a long way to go, and there's still room to increase. The corporate sponsorships, they become more important every day. So for profit, big corporations start to support this sector. Unfortunately, there is no evaluation of their impact, no report. So we can really evaluate the amounts, the impact they had on this respect. The crowdfunding is also a source of funds. It's a growing interest, especially at the community level. However, it's still incipient. A specific legislation has been adopted in 2022. And now, according to this legislation, these platforms of crowdfunding require to be authorized by the National Authority of Financial Supervision here in Romania. So it's more difficult, and so far only one platform has been authorized to function. Previously to adopting this legislation, there were several other small platforms trying to promote this type of funding, but now they do not meet this criteria. They need to do some work in order to be certified, and we will see how many of them will succeed in this process. And of course, there are the loans, which can sustain the social enterprises. But there are only few banks or financial institutions that offer dedicated products, and the number of loans and volumes is very small. The cooperative banks that I mentioned, the 34 one, they are the only ones that have explicit legal right to finance other type of companies than commercial companies. But again, there are no official statistics to see somewhere the number of loans granted to social enterprises in Romania. You can only find some information when on the websites of the financial institutions. So, but from discussing with them, from the study we made, and which I will mention a bit later, it seems that the number of loans is it's very small on the market and not enough for them. In the last couple of years, there were couple of studies also about social finance market in Romania. And they discovered which are the main barriers, let's say, in crediting social enterprises. most of the credit institutions assess the applications in a very similar way to that for-profit companies, which of course is not suitable for the financial sector and is very restrictive. The main challenges which were mentioned both by the banks and by the social enterprises were the lack of collaterals for loans, the insufficient know-how to prepare business plans or financial projections, the higher risk perceived by lending institutions because they had usually short or non-existing funding history, difficult to estimate their repayment capacity, therefore it's a low credibility and the higher risk perceived. And this also because the credit institutions do not have eligibility criteria relevant to these social entrepreneurs. As I said, they are doing it in a classic way as they analyze each other commercial company. Because I come from a background of also banking and microfinance, and I joined only 1 year ago this sector, the social economy sector. I tried here to present my own opinion regarding the similarities and the differences between financing the social economy and the microfinance sector. In my opinion, at least, there are a lot of similarities between micro enterprises and social enterprises because they both promote sustainable employment and social inclusion. They both cover a variety of businesses. You can find all types of legal entities in both sides. Yet both continue to face difficulties in accessing finance due to what I mentioned previously, perceived higher risk, lack of collateral, insufficient knowledge to prepare credit documentation. However, the biggest differences mentioned by my colleague in Poland as well, when you analyze a social enterprise, they on one hand need to be able to produce a proof of social impact to show you that prioritize impact over profit in order to be eligible. And on the other hand, the financing institutions need to have knowledge to understand the social enterprise models. Where we can see right now, there is a vast experience in microfinance. I think there is a lot of a lack of knowledge or of understanding of these models in the classical financial sector. And one other small difference, not sure how relevant, but for Romania it is. In microfinance, usually the average ticket size is around 15 to 20,000 euro. Can go up, of course, to 50 or 100,000 occasionally, but this is the average ticket size. Whereas the social financing may require sometimes higher amounts for more mature organizations, and which are usually treated more like SMEs here in Romania. There are also here not specialized departments dealing with social financing. All applications are either administered by the microfinance department if the amount requested is small, or by the SME department. And that's why there is this lack of knowledge, and the financing of social enterprises does not develop in the classical financial sector, at least so far. They also, when we asked them, we made a lot of questionnaires, they said, yes, we are interested to develop this. We perceive a high risk, we would like to do this and this, but in fact, they continued to include the social enterprises among their clients as SMEs or as micro businesses. So in this context, of lack of access to finance for Romanian social enterprises, mainly after the startup phase, lack of tailored financial products for social enterprises during their growth period, and lack of support during the lifetime of the loans. Three partners, three experienced, let's say, participants, actors of the social economic sector decided to join their efforts and try to find a solution. The possible solution they thought of was the establishment of a specialized financial institution dedicated to social economy. Those three partners were the Foundation ADV Romania, which is one of the largest and oldest organizations involved in the social economy here in Romania. The European Federation of Ethical and Alternative Banks, and also Patria Credit, which is one of the largest microcredit institutions in Romania. They started the project, which was funded by the European Union, having as main objective, try to assess the financing needs of social enterprises in Romania, to see whether there are potential investors interested in investing in this sector, and if the answer to those two questions was positive, to try and design and to establish a specialized institutions in financing social enterprises. The project started in 2021, sometime in October, I think, although the discussion started earlier. During the lifetime of the project, there were a lot of activities. Unfortunately, it was the pandemic period, so some of them had to be held exclusively online, like workshops, learning workshops, or virtual peer visits. Market research was done also, and networking, attracting potential investors to see whether they are interested in investing and in creating such a company. In terms of market research, there was this barometer of access to finance of social economy enterprises from Romania was done at the end of 2021 by in the same project by the three partners, and all the findings of this research showed the necessity of creating such a specialized financing company. I wanted just to show you just two of the findings in this report. One of the questions asked to the participants was what funding sources they used to establish or to develop social businesses in the last 3 years. And if you look at the graph, you can see that more than 50% used their own funds. A lot of them used membership fees or contributions or shares or grants, but very few of them used loans either from banks or from non-bank financial institutions, because mainly they were not available to them. So, and because they do not trust the classic financial system to be able to understand their way of working and to grant them this type of funding. But we asked them what type of sources they target for the future, what they envision to do in the future. And despite the fact that most of them still want non-refundable grants, they got used to these grants, and almost 60% or more than 60% of them still consider these grants non-refundable very useful or useful. You can also see that around 40-45% of them consider a mixed funding being useful or very useful, and they would like to be able to access it, like combining a loan with grants and maybe with crowdfunding if available. And that we started our project after all this research. As I said, in October, we started the project to set up the company. It took around 6-7 months to raise the initial capital required, which for Romania is 200,000 euro. This is the capital required by the National Bank of Romania to establish a non-bank financial institutions. In May, we are set up as a joint stock company. According to the law, we submitted for registration with the General Registry of National Bank of Romania. It's the only way. If you are not registered, you cannot grant loans, you cannot operate here in Romania. In parallel, we also obtained the certificate of social enterprise. As I mentioned before, we incorporated in our statute and bylaws all these criteria mentioned before. We finalized the registration at the beginning, towards the beginning of January 2023. It took a lot of work because you will see in the following slide, we have a large number of investors, and the NBR needs to analyze each and every investor to approve it, and that's why it took so long. And after that, we had to implement some measures, of course, to become operational, and we started the credit activity very, very recently in April 2023. So, shortly, who are we? We are the first non-bank financial institutions in Romania, which is exclusively dedicated to the field of social economy. We are also the first non-bank financial institution certified as a social enterprise. We have 170 founding members, both individuals and legal persons, out of which more than 70% are involved in social economy. The largest one has like 10% of the share capital. All of the others have smaller amounts. And what differentiates us from other non-bank financial institutions, let's say, it's that the decision to finance will be based both on financial indicators and on social and green impact indicators. There will be a correlation. Of course, in fact, the most important criteria will be the second one, the social and green impact indicators. If this is not a criteria that is met, the application will not be further analyzed. So this is what our shareholders decided when we established this company. The objectives probably resulted from what I said before, is to facilitate the access to financing for social enterprises, mainly overcame their startup phase and need capital and resources to grow. Here is just a slide showing our board members, because we are now just at the beginning. We do not have too much activity or too many figures to show you and to present our activity. I thought that showing you what we have managed to attract as board members and their experience in the field should be relevant. So all 5 of them, 4 are Romanian and 1 it's Spanish, have more than 15-20 years experience in banking, in social economy, both in practice, in theory, also in market research. And I think using them, they are also members of our, let's say, credit committee, which will be involved directly in approving each and every application using their abilities and their experience mainly in the social economy field. What we offer now at the beginning, as we said, we just started. We have loans for working capital, for investments, and bridge loans, some of them for European funds projects, with a small average ticket size, because now with only grant loans from our own share capital, which is, as I said, 200,000. So we started with small loans until we managed to gather to other funds from banks or from other investors. The ticket size will be around 20,000-25,000 euro, and the loan duration is between 1 and 5 years. We also want to provide specialized assistance to them, not only to fill in the applications and the financial projections, but also for their business development, for increasing the sustainability, some financial educations when needed. How we plan to do this is trying to have an integrated operational model. So besides the financing vehicle, which is AFIN, which was established as a non-banking financial institutions and carries out its activity under the supervision of MBR. So we have to also submit or observe, like all other MBA non-bank financial institutions, a lot of rules and regulations and so on. We only established also a consulting vehicle, which is Social Finance Association. It was established as an NGO, and its main purpose is this one, to develop social economic programs, to facilitate exchange of know-how between social entities, to advise social entrepreneurs to establish businesses. And at a later not only at a later stage, but even now, a Social Finance Association is also one of our shareholders, to try and support AFIN, the financing vehicle, with resources needed for covering part of the operating expenses for capacity building by attracting sponsorships or other funds from here in Romania, because you cannot have sponsorships on a commercial company. You can only do it through an NGO, and that's why we also established this NGO. We will try to have here a lot of volunteers, of specialists who will work with us, both on volunteer basis, later on maybe on consultancy fees, of course, to develop more and more this activity. I mentioned that the first criteria that we analyze when receiving an application is the social impact analysis. This might prove to be rather difficult, despite all the experience that we have on the board members and everything. We are still building this analysis tools because customers come from different fields. There is a wide variety of social issues, and it's difficult sometimes to measure in a unified way. What we are looking right now at the first applications is what is their mission, if they have a clear idea of what is trying to achieve, a realistic plan to achieve the mission, if they can show us how they plan to fulfill this mission. Also, if they have the organizational capacity, skilled and experienced employees, strong leadership, some finances to carry out the activity, and at the end, to see how we can measure their impact. If they already use some methods, if they have some indicators, some ratios they are using right now, or we can select together the appropriate ratios for measuring social impact and for monitoring it during the life of the loan. If they are certified social enterprises, they need also to submit every year, towards the end of March, a report to the County Agency for Employment showing what was their impact activity, their social impact activity, and we may base our monitoring and establishing of the ratios on these reports. But we do not want to limit, of course, ourselves just to certify social enterprises, and for the other ones, we have to find our own methods and ratios to monitor this impact. Where we are today, as I said, we are just at the beginning. We have a lower request than we anticipated, due not to being known maybe on the market, but also to the macroeconomic situation, the high interest rate here in Romania, the reluctance of the companies to take loans during this period. Initial requests came from rather new certified social enterprises, small, not really bankable or eligible for being financed by banks or other non-bank financial institutions. Smaller amounts requested, or that we were able to approve due to low capacity of repayment compared with what we anticipated. So far, we managed to disburse only 3 loans of around 10,000 euro average, versus what we anticipated around 20,000 and 25,000 average ticket. But as I said, we are just at the beginning. We have a long way ahead of us, and we hope to improve our activity in the future and be able to come back to you and give you better news on what happens in the market and the way we can help this social economy sector by financing it. And I'll finish here with some final remarks. Of course, AFIN establishment is just a small step in the attempt made by, as I said, a lot of the economy participants to develop in Romania an adequate financial ecosystem, able to provide effective support to social economy organizations. But still, there is a need to diversify the financing offer, to offer them products dedicated on each stage of development, to develop maybe or to create specific instruments for some local communities or social subfields, specialized financing institutions to monitor the evaluation and impact of the socially funded enterprises, and to provide complementary services to financing. There are not so many with expertise on the market, and develop instruments adapted to social enterprises, or which right now on the market are available only to SMEs, such as guarantees or financial investment instruments. Just to mention that we started at the beginning of last year to work with as consultants with the National Guarantee Fund for Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises. It seems that during the new European funds programs that started now, the allocation in 2021, there is an amount which will be used to develop financial instruments for social economy, for the growth of social economy. And we try to work with them and develop a product, a guarantee product combined with grants, which might be very appealing for social economy actors. But it's a lot of work to convince also the management authority, meaning the Ministry of European Funds, because they want to, of course, again, to limit this financial instrument only to certified social enterprises. This is a small market, as I said, only 2,900. I'm not sure how willing will be the financial intermediaries here in Romania to enter in such a program for such a limited market. But we are working. It's a small step. It's also another first step, let's say, and hopefully we will manage to develop it by the end of the first semester, and will help increasing the number of loans granted by the banks or non-bank financial institutions to social economic actors. Another short mention, we don't want to compete with the banks. We cannot really compete with the banks or non-bank financial institutions in this respect. We are small, we are just at the beginning. And what we want, in fact, to do is to help with small loans, these social enterprises to grow, to develop some financial knowledge about loans, to have a credit history, and then to become, let's say, more bankable and become good clients of the classical financial sectors and be able to grow even more. And on the other hand, if this number of loans increases, maybe the credibility of the social sector will increase in the financial sector as well. And a lot of banks and non-bank financial institutions will be willing to include in their offer specialized products for this type of activity. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Felicia. It was also a very interesting presentation. I think a little bit different, although you were mentioning you are going to repeat some information. I found it still different and useful for all those who are interested in the social economy and financing of social economy players or clients. And I think you also showed the difference of social economy finance versus microfinance, and I mean how much what is really important is to have good knowledge and expertise to finance social economy enterprises, what was also mentioned by Katarzyna. Yes. And what was also interesting to see all the steps which were leading or preceding to forming social economy finance provider. Yes. Which, and the time which it requires, because I think that gives clear idea to those who plan their activities to support social economy
Yes.
recipients or clients.
Yes.
So
and,
it's quite cumbersome and complicated process to have everything on board and to be able to kick off with your activities.
Indeed, a lot of bureaucracy. And as we said, we are just at the beginning because our social capital will end very quickly. And now we are in the process of finding sources, to attract sources, and to be able to continue our activity, which also will not prove to be an easy process. I can I can feel it.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
yes, we are
And I
working.
think what I also would like to highlight is the operational model, that it's important, to consider to combine financial and business development services. You as a, provider of social economic finance are going to do. So I think by that, we really heard about two countries, about situations and positions of social economy in two different countries of Europe. But I think many participants coming also from other regions could receive a good understanding what the social economy and financing of social economy enterprise is all about. So thank you very much to both of you, Katarzyna and Felicia, for your time, for your availability and sharing all this information. The presentations will be shared with all the participants. And before we go, we have still a couple of minutes, but maybe interesting question was here about the tax incentives. If a company which is a social enterprise has any tax incentives or any other incentives, maybe if you could comment.
Yes, I think there are some. I don't want to hazard right now and to give you the full answer because, as I said, I'm in this sector only for 1 year. I try to gather a lot of information about this sector, but I'm still not, and I don't want to give you a wrong answer. So if I may, I will come back with this answer, and you can send it, or I'll include it in my presentation, and you can send it to the participants. But they have some incentives, but not sure how much of it. Usually they have subventions for hiring, as I said, people from vulnerable groups. But the income tax, for instance, is similar. They do not have any benefits. So, but on the other hand, they need to reinvest 90% of their profit in the company. So here it's a contradicting one. You have to pay income, and then the 90% of your profit it's compulsory to be reinvested. But if there are other incentives, I will try to find out. But mainly this is the subvention for the salaries for vulnerable employees, and for the income tax there is no.
Thank you. Katarzyna, do you maybe have some more information from Poland, whether the social enterprises are anyhow in advantageous position compared to any specific incentives?
Yeah, the same as Felicia said, we have some incentives as far as job creation is concerned, but that I would say that's all.
All right, clear. And very last question before we all go: how do you usually measure the impacts? Any specific indicators or the process? How do you measure the impact, if you do?
I maybe will answer first. Yes, we try to measure, but we do not have any objective in the sense the same for everybody. We negotiate some measures with our clients, type the volume of the number of persons, for instance, getting catering services, or this kind of the number of children under the special therapy, or this kind of ratios. But they are not objective in the sense that we cannot compare one entity to another. This objective measurement and compare with the aim to compare clients, no, we do not have, and personally I am a little bit skeptical about it.
Thank you.
The same answer
Alicia?
here. I mentioned in my presentation that there are a variety of clients and it's very difficult to have a unified system to measure it. For the first three, for instance, applications that we had, we included similar ratios that my colleague mentioned. For instance, number of services provided, number of cultural activities that were developed over one period, so this is the type of indicators: number of services, number of beneficiaries, number of, depending on what type of activity they have. So it's difficult for me right now to give you another answer, but depends very much on the type of activity which is presented to us. And we agree together on minimum three ratios that are also easy to monitor for us and for them, to provide reporting and everything, not to burden them even more with all kinds of reports.
Thank you. Thank you. So thanks again to both of our distinguished speakers, and thank you also to all participants who came and also share with us interesting questions, and wish you good luck with your activities, and see you around in our upcoming webinars.